Hey, what's going on, guys? Got a question for y'all. Got a question for y'all about table rock. I want to see what y'all would have thought about this, what y'all would have done. I want to hear y'all's feedback. I'm all right with this decision, and I'll tell you why. But I got to ask y'all this. What would you do if you found 4 or 5 giant schools of fish and you could catch them? Like, you could catch them, but you were a little worried about the size of them. You thought there was probably some good ones up there, but you already had something planned. You already had something that you had already worked out for this tournament, and you really thought what you were on was pretty good. I actually thought it was pretty good, considering I got to see how Chad caught him. I got to see his day 5, and this is about the Toyota Championship on Table Rock. I saw his day 5, and I was like, oh man, he was kind of in the same water depth as I. He was kind of doing something different. He was throwing a jig. I wasn't doing that. And he had kind of figured out this drain thing. I had found some fish in the drains. I think he had it way more dialed in, like way more dialed in, obviously. I don't know if he was on, I don't know really by watching that if he was on, like, there was tons of fish in those drains, like a whole bunch, or if there were, like, when I say a whole bunch, sometimes we'd find some spots that had, 20 or 30, maybe in schools around brush and stuff like that, or it was more, 5 to 6, 7, things like that. That's kind of what I found. It was more the 5 to 7 fish range, and then just trying to catch one of those. But up the lake, like way up the lake, I knew about some fish from years and years ago. I had gone up there and found, let me think about this, at least 2 schools of fish, kind of 3. I'd found those fish, and I didn't know if they were still up there, but every time I used to go up the river, I used to get burnt. They burned me all the time. A little love-hate relationship with the north end of that lake, because I had gotten burned a couple of those times. So as the tournament goes on, I wasn't even going to go up there. Didn't even plan on going up there. After I'd stopped fishing up the river, over the next couple of years, I stopped going up there, and I started doing a lot better in tournaments. So I just said, I'm not going up there. And I figured out other places to fish, and I liked them better. You could catch all of them, like smallmouth, spots, largemouth, everything. And up there, I didn't really catch that many smallmouth, and I just figured smallmouths always started playing a role in how I caught fish. But it was the last day of practice. I was sitting here, it was gonna blow really, really bad, like real bad. So I was like, man, I don't know if I can really fish the way I wanted to in more of the main lake. So I was like, what if I just go up there and kind of see what's going on up there? Maybe if I made a day 3, I could run up there or something like that. So I run up there, and it's blowing bad. And I did catch a smallmouth when I first got there. I was going, oh, great, I even caught a smallmouth. But I kept on going further and further north, and I hadn't been up there in a while, so I was trying to really think about everything. I pull up to the first spot, I kind of graph around just for a second, and there they are. I mean, just tons of them. So I start catching them. I catch a couple keepers, but then once again the small ones come in. And when I say small ones, they're all like 14 inches. They got to be 15 at Table Rock, and they're these 14 inchers, 14 and a half. I'm like, yeah, this is what I remember. But there's a bunch of them. Now, I will say, you can catch them for a little bit, and then they start getting really tough. Well, I left there, and I'm going up, and like I said, I'm trying to remember. I don't have any waypoints from years ago, so I'm really trying to remember what everything was and where everything was. And I have some other spots too that I just caught fish just fishing around. Like, I would catch one here, one there. So I was thinking about those and driving up there, and I see something on the graph. I'm like, oh yeah, there's this little place up here, and I think it's this. I literally drove over there, And I'm like, oh my gosh, look at these fish. They're everywhere. Okay, so I want to show you all, like, this is what I saw on the graph. I drove over them a bunch, but I forgot to take a picture of them. But this is the best pictures I could get. And I'm going, oh my gosh. Well, lit them up there too. Just crushed on them. Not a lot of big ones. And once again, after I started catching a couple, it started getting hard again. So I was going, okay. Now when I say that, I'm catching them every cast, and then I go to like one every 5 minutes. So I don't know. I mean, that's not bad, catching one every 5 minutes. Don't get me wrong. I've never set on schools like that for a long time, so I don't know if you could just keep throwing in there if you would get bit. And I don't know. I don't know, but I didn't care. I said, all right, let's go. So I drive further up the lake, and I go find another school of fish. I'm like, yep, I remember these. Now I have live scope so I can see them better, and I can really tell how many fish are down there. So I catch some of those, go to another spot, and I catch them there as well. This is a spot I had remembered, and I don't think a lot of people knew about this spot. There was a couple of them that I figured people knew about, but this one I didn't think anyone knew about. Then now with the maps even better, I kind of was like, man, if they're here, I bet you they're over here. So I idled over there real quick, another giant school. Now I didn't fish for those because I didn't need to. I already saw them on the screen. And I was like, golly, man, there's a lot of fish. I fished around up there though, just little places where I thought I could catch one here, one there. I like those places because they're usually good ones. And I ended up having one bite. No, I had 2 bites, caught one. It was a decent one. And then I went further down. I started throwing my hybrid hunter around, caught one doing that. And I kind of just kept on going down the lake. And as I went down the lake further and further, I started doing what I had been doing. And I got a couple more bites, pulled up on a spot, and caught 3 decent ones within like 10 minutes. So I'm sitting here going, okay, wait a minute. You know, I did all this today, but as soon as I started going back to doing what I had been doing, right? I catch fish. I don't catch a bunch of them, but they're good ones. So I was like, all right, that's why I didn't even want to go up there. However, at the meeting, I was talking to my buddy, and I was telling him about it. He's like, you're not going up there? I'm like, nah, I'm not even gonna go up there. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, I'm not going up there. I've been burned up there before. And he was kind of shocked, and I get it. He had never been to Tail Ride before. I said, hey, look, man, I'm catching them another way. I don't have to drive 45 minutes up the river. Man, what if I get up there and there's 5 to 6 schools of them? I guarantee you a couple of them have been found. So maybe I really only have 2 or 3. And even then, what if people found those? Because I found them. I found all this within a couple of hours. And I was like, they're not giants. There might be big ones there, but I didn't catch any in the 30 fish I caught. I was like, so I got to go up there. I drive all the way up there. I bypass all the stuff I'm doing, and there might be people on them, and it wasn't that good doing the other stuff, and I've been burned up there before. So yeah, I never went. I never even thought twice about it. Even after I only caught 2 fish on day 1, I never even thought about trying to go up there. And so I want to know, like, what would y'all have done? Because I know in fishing, in these tournaments, I get so many questions about, there's like, hey, do you go for a limit, or do you just go for big ones? And how do you manage all that? Or how do you make those decisions? And I always tell people, I'm like, hey, look, it always depends. Every tournament's different. I rarely care much about limits in certain events. I'll be honest, Table Rock, I cared a little bit, But I really wasn't that worried because I was getting I was getting 8 to 10, 12 bites in practice. And then half of my practices, I was looking for other fish. Like I wasn't leaning on them hard. I was getting bites. Sometimes I wouldn't even throw at fish when I found them. I don't know what happened on day one, guys. I know I only caught 2, but it is what it is. I just had a bad day. I didn't get the bites. I don't know what to say. But I do not regret going up to those fish. And then I actually talked to a buddy of mine who was staying with me, and he had kind of talked about how he was going up there. And then I said, hey man, I'm not going up there, but how many people were up there on day one? He said, oh, that school of fish, there was a guy on that school of fish, that school. And I was like, yeah, that's what I figured. And so, yes, there was a lot of fish. Yes, there were a lot of schools, but they were only big enough for one person each. And they started getting split up. And most of the fish I was fishing for, no one was fishing for. So I think it was the right decision. However, when you saw what you saw about me catching them and everything, yeah, it could be a hard decision for most. But I think, man, you got to be realistic, right? You got to be realistic in your approach on, yeah, it's there, but you got to drive. Could there be people on it? Are they really that big? I always say, man, I'm going to take a chance at trying to catch bigger ones where no one's at than, doing that other route. Because remember, $200,000 on the line. I'll take my chances at $200,000 all day long rather than just trying to kind of do good in a tournament, right? Kind of doing good usually gets you kind of doing good or not that great. Going for it sometimes, kind of taking that chance, and I wouldn't even say it was a big chance, but going for it, and usually that gets you in the top 10 a lot. So I don't know, tell me what y'all think, and yeah, I'd love to hear y'all's comments on this. So I thought I'd share that with you, a little bit of stuff from Table Rock that I haven't really talked about. All right, see you guys.